Welcome back to the Kelly Roach Show. I'm excited to have a conversation with you today to really break down and work through together the differences between being wealthy and being rich. And for a lot of people, they don't understand this distinction. And it's why so many business leaders, both inside companies as well as those who have built their own company, feel so disillusioned and frustrated and disappointed because they feel like they are, quote unquote, on the path that they were supposed to be on, that they've done everything right, that they've worked so hard, they've sacrificed so much, they've given so much of themselves, and yet they don't have the life satisfaction that they thought that they would be enjoying at this point. For a lot of people, they kind of feel like they were sold a bag of goods because they gave so much of their life, their time, their energy, their health, their sanity to the pursuit of success just to find themselves sometimes with a decent bank account, but not a life that is fulfilling or joyful to match it. And so I want to talk about the difference between being wealthy and being rich. And I think this is a very important distinction to use as a guiding principle for how you build your business. And I know that burnout has been just such a massive heartache and point of contention for so many people over the last couple of years. I don't know. I've talked to so many entrepreneurs that are feeling so burnout and just so frustrated with never feeling like they can kind of get ahead, right? And the truth of the matter is obviously with the amount of change that we've all experienced in the market and in consumer mentality and all of that, you are getting a lot less in return for your effort today than you were a few years ago. So that's absolutely true. And that is something that everyone is dealing with, in just about every industry and every business type right now. But I want to go beyond that, and I really want to discuss these differences so that you can think about your business strategy. Now, when you think about being rich is primarily representative of thinking about having financial strength, right? Having money, essentially. Whereas wealth, in many instances, is not just being financially well off, but it's a much more multidimensional and robust almost way of being, right? Being wealthy. And when you think about it, someone who has built wealth for themselves many times has multiple streams of income. Their money is working for them. They have a diversified way in which they are compensated, which allows them to be able to navigate and weather storms well. And when you meet wealthy people, you notice that they tend to really prioritize leisure time, family time, charity time. When you meet a wealthy person, many times you don't even know that you're meeting a wealthy person because they don't prioritize wearing their wealth, so to speak. In many instances, they may be dressed in more plain clothes than someone who proclaims that they are rich, but it's because in many instances, people that are truly wealthy make very values-driven decisions about everything that they do, and usually aren't prioritizing, the clothes that they wear or the car that they drive as the top thing that they are really focused on or thinking about, right? It's not so much about projection as it is about experience. And I think this is really, really important because when you are in the entrepreneurial space, especially today, there are so many people that tend to really focus on building their platform around showing everyone how successful they are. And in many instances, whether it's putting on large multi-million-dollar events, or whether it's flying private, or whether it's constantly buying new cars or new homes, or showing the luxury goods that they're spending money on, I could go on and on. But to keep up appearances, many people who would otherwise be able to be wealthy and have a great life are on an endless treadmill of debt and an endless treadmill of having to keep up their appearances, which they would be rich and they would be wealthy, but they can't be rich and they can't be wealthy because they have to use all the money that's coming in to reinvest in keeping the appearance of looking like they're doing well so that they can keep doing well because that's what they've built their platform around, right? And if you look at studies and if you listen to biographies and watch the stories of people that have had great fame, and you study about people that have in many instances had large sums of money given to them, or even because of a period in their life earned a great large sum of money, in many instances, it goes away as quickly as it came. For many, the experience of fame it was not good for their mental health. And many people that have had very high levels of fame, will say to you, like, it was torture, right? It was torture because, when you're put up on a pedestal, obviously people have as much joy and obsession worshiping you as they do tearing you down. And these are just kind of the dualities that come, with these things. So I think that having a perspective around the difference between being rich, which means that in many instances, you're in pursuit of success and financial gain as your priority, as your top focus point of what you're doing, which means in many instances, you'll sacrifice in the vast majority of other areas of life to prioritize that one thing to advance it as quickly as possible. Whereas when you think about building wealth is oftentimes a very, very slow process. And it many times takes decades to build wealth, right? Building wealth doesn't happen quickly. Building wealth many times takes a lot more steps and a lot more time. And it doesn't come as quickly because building wealth is much more holistic, right? When you think about building wealth, there is the foundation of the thing that gets you in a financial position to be able to become an investor, to be able to invest in and have multiple streams of income, to be able to diversify where and how you make money. But oftentimes, someone who has built wealth did that one core kind of active pursuit of building their financial position, sometimes for a decade, sometimes for 2 or 3 decades before they really transitioned into that more holistic pursuit of wealth. But I think the best way to think about the difference between getting rich versus building wealth is that in building wealth, it is slow and compounding over time. And it's in consideration of all of the areas in which you want to be wealthy, right? Wealthy in time, wealthy in your health, wealthy in rich relationships, wealthy in the freedom to spend your money how you choose, not to keep up appearances, but on quiet things that actually bring you joy and bring you satisfaction and happiness in life, right? And so your strategy is completely different depending on which of these you're pursuing. And this is why I think this is such an important episode for so many podcast listeners to hear, because I think that it can be very tempting to feel like you have to create this persona online where you show how exciting and great your life is and all the things that you're doing and all the toys that you're buying and all the amazing experiences that you're having. And I think what a lot of people don't realize about that, and it's why I never got in that game and it's why I'll never get in that game, is that you sacrifice so much of your ability to build wealth by trying to look rich. And I knew that from day one, and it's why I never even got near that. I've never tried to make my life look a certain way. I've never tried to spend money on things to create the appearance of, right? And the moment that you get in that game, it is like a never ending cycle that you can't exit, because now you have to outdo yourself. and then you have to outdo yourself again, and then you have to outdo yourself again. And what people don't realize is the compounding effect of what you could be doing with that money that actually facilitates a wealthy life, freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of location, freedom to have rich relationships, freedom to keep private what you want to keep private. And this has been a huge thing for me. I mean, obviously, I feel like one of the wealthiest decisions I could have made was moving to the beach in Florida. Then I think one of the wealthiest decisions I made behind that was being able to decide to step back and homeschool Madison next year and have the wealth and the freedom to have the security to know that I can still take care of my family financially while taking the time to do something that I think is the most worthy use of my time possible, right? And so understanding the difference between these two things, a lot of people think that they should be rich a lot faster than they're getting wealthy or that they're building their financial position, and they start cutting corners and they start shortcutting the process, and they actually put themselves in a position where they can't build wealth because they were too focused on getting rich. And I think understanding this perspective is huge because the way that you make decisions is completely different. I'll give a specific example in my career. I could have built my platform 10 times, 100 times faster, my position in the market, how well known my brand was, if I focused on speaking. For the last 10 years, I have avoided speaking. I have avoided going to conferences. I have avoided going to big events. I've avoided joining big masterminds and doing any of those celebrity associations. Although I know that if I got myself in the rooms with the right people and I did all the things and I spoke on the right stages and I was in the right lineups and all of that, it would have accelerated 10x everything that I was doing. I chose not to do that because I didn't want to be away from my family, because I did not want to have more time and energy spent on the business, away from Madison, away from Billy, for something that, yes, would accelerate my path to popularity, but wasn't going to enrich my life, right? I could still do live launches from the comfort of my home and only be away from my family a few hours a day and still be able to be available and present at night and on the weekends with my family over these last 10 years while building great income and building my business. And that's why, if you look at the difference between me and other people in the space, many of them run a 6 or maybe a low 7-figure business, but are very, very, very popular. They have huge followings online. They're more well-known than me. They have a bigger brand than I do, but the payoff is less, right? Where I chose to focus on being at home with my family and living a much quieter life and really having a much slower build from the standpoint of platform and popularity, which I'm totally okay with, because I opted to build wealth slowly instead of pursuing fame and riches quickly. And so that was a strategic decision that I made, and I really stuck with that decision. And next year is probably the first year since I started that we will have a true outbound strategy for speaking. And that's because now Madison is old enough that she can travel with me. She's homeschooling. She can come with me to the events. We can be together. She can learn. She can listen to my presentations. It's the time, right? And so I have zero regrets that I built slower. I have zero regrets that I have a smaller following online, right? Because I know I chose to pursue the path of wealthy for my family versus rich in the short term that would have very much put a lot of stress on my family. It would have put a lot of stress on my relationship with Billy. It would have put a lot of stress on my relationship with Madison. It would have made it very hard on our family for me to be constantly leaving on top of all the other responsibilities that I have in the day-to-day of the business. And so these little decisions that we make have huge implications. Because I was not pursuing the fastest growth on the platform, I was able to focus on creating content that I really felt added value and was meaningful and made an impact versus chasing trends and fads and having to keep up with the Joneses and having to one-up myself constantly to be more interesting and more fabulous and more this and more that. And instead just focus on, how do I add the most value? How do I make the biggest impact? How do I help my clients to get the best results? And it's a very different thing. So where I want to challenge you is, number one, to think about the business model that you're running and to ask yourself if the business model that you are running is going to allow you to build wealth. And when you think about building wealth, it's multidimensional. It's freedom of time. It's freedom of location. It's freedom to show up how you want, when you want, right? It's freedom to decide how and when you work, how much and how often you work. And yes, of course, it is also building financial freedom. So think about your business model. Think about the way that you're building your team. Are you hiring helpers that just constantly consume your time and energy? And yes, they can get stuff done, but they're completely relying on you. Or are you hiring leaders who can actually take ownership of things in the business and really drive the company forward so that ultimately it's going to be self-led and self-run? These are the decisions that really, really matter. And this is why I am obsessed with helping people build self-led and self-run companies, which, by the way, is a very long multi-year process. This is not something that happens overnight. This is not something that happens in a single year. This is not something that happens in 2 years. This is a multi-year process with many, many layers that you have to go through. But getting your business model right, building the right kind of team, having the right structure, making sure that the way you're setting up your business matches the wealthy life that you want to create, and making sure that you're pursuing the right pathway in terms of how you're building your business online. Because if your content is constantly chasing fads and chasing trends and trying to keep up with the latest algorithm, then it's not going to be relevant a couple months or a couple weeks or a couple years from now. Whereas if you're focused on really building a brand that is super high value, super high impact, and is providing timeless evergreen content, you're going to be able to repurpose that for years and years to come. So that's really important and something to really think about as well. So all of this to say, there's a massive and vast difference between a singular focus on building riches versus a multidimensional focus on creating wealth. Wealth happens slowly over many decades. Building wealth is very much about lifestyle. And when you slow down and you allow yourself to have longer range goals that fit more clearly into a vision of a wealthy life, and when you pursue your own path that is unique to you, you will find that your stress level is going to come down, that your anxiety is going to come down, that your burnout is going to dissipate, that you're going to feel more in control, that you are going to feel more anchored to your vision, and that you're going to see that there is a path to progress, there is an outcome. Because when all you're doing is pursuing riches, it is a never-ending treadmill. As soon as you hit one number, you feel like you have to hit the next number, the next number, the next number. It is never enough. And all you're doing is constantly trying to one-up yourself to keep it interesting, to keep people engaged. Whereas when you focus on building quiet wealth, building privacy, making moves in silence, cherishing the most important moments for your family in the privacy of your own sacred space, that's true wealth. So think about what this looks like for you. I hope this was a meaningful episode, and I hope this really drew your attention to maybe some ways that you can eliminate burnout. Because I think that when you set longer range goals, you have a clearer vision for the holistic perspective of your life, and you're building towards something that really addresses all of the areas of your life that are important to you. You're going to be okay running your own race. You're going to stop comparing yourself to others, and you're going to get ahead in big, big ways. So thanks for tuning into the show today. As always, I want to invite you to DM me the word call. If you are looking for mentorship, you want to build a wildly successful, wildly profitable business, but you want to build it in a wealthy way that is holistic, that is in consideration of the things and people that you love, that is going to hit all areas of life, I want you to DM me the word call, and I'll have a team member reach out and get in a conversation with you. There's lots of different ways that you can work with my organization to help you get your business clicking in high gear, build the life of your dreams, and to make sure that you're doing it in a way that has all of the areas of your life that are most important to you in consideration. So again, you can DM me the word call on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are, and we look forward to hearing from you.